Welcome back, folks, to Hashtag AskGSM here today for February 1st, 2016. I'm Graham GSM Matthews. Of course, we're not doing video here today. I'm recording this early Monday. I'm going to class in like 40 minutes. So, because my schedule with classes and stuff this semester is so wacky, we might have to do just audio for Hashtag for the foreseeable future, unfortunately. Maybe when I'm home on break and stuff, I'll be able to do face-to-face camera time and stuff, which I like doing a lot better, to be honest with you. But just audio for right now. Shout out to RJ at RJ_Marcel for joining me last week for a great episode. Be sure to go back and check that one out. And today's episode might be a little bit shorter than usual, like as in less than an hour. Because like I said, I do have to go to class in a short period of time. But nevertheless, you guys questions, be sure to send in your questions on Twitter by tweeting me at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook. Give the page an old thumbs up at facebook.com/Graham.GSM.Matthews. Leave a comment on the post I usually put up on Sunday nights, or leave your comment, or leave your question rather, on the post or on the wall itself. Or you can leave a comment on this very video, and I'll be sure to include your question in next week's edition. So without further ado, first question comes from the first KFC from YouTube. Will Alex Riley ever be on the main roster again? You know, I want to say yes. I don't think so. I know he's not among the IWC favorites right now. Never really has he been. I mean, I look at like comment threads from like 3-4 years ago, and never has the internet really liked Alex Riley. Maybe when he first broke out, but that was about it. I'm still a fan of Alex Riley. He's got some really good promos. His match, I mean, he's not a great wrestler. He's just kind of bland. But I don't know. I've always been a fan of Alex Riley. I don't think he ever will be back in the main roster. I think he's fine just where he's at in NXT. I think he's better in the ring than he is on commentary. I liked his commentary to an extent, but he was not the greatest, especially towards the end of his heel run on commentary. People were begging to get him off the booth. But still, I think he's better in the ring. I don't think he'll be a part of the main roster again. And if he was, he'd be like a Zack Ryder-esque guy, like a Zack Ryder level guy. I don't think he's going to be beyond anything above that if he was going to go back to Raw or SmackDown. His second question, do you listen to Talk is Jericho? If so, what is your favorite and least favorite episode? Yes, I love Talk is Jericho. I've actually listened to every single episode. I didn't binge watch, I guess, to Talk is Jericho. I've just been following it since day one. When I heard Jericho was going to have a podcast, I'm like, I'm fucking in. That was one of the first podcasts that I actually started listening to on a weekly basis, other than the Solid Monster Sounds Off and then Stone Cold's too. And then Jim Ross's came later, Sam Roberts came later. But yeah, Talk is Jericho, listen to every single episode. I don't really have a least favorite episode. Maybe just the ones, I don't know, even the non-wrestling ones I listen to, just because Jericho is so entertaining and he can make anything engaging. So even those I listen to, like the music ones that I don't really know too much about, I don't really love, but they're still pretty good. So I don't really have a least favorite episode. There's not one that I genuinely hated. But my favorite episodes, there's a couple of them. I actually did an article for Hidden Remote last in December on the 2-year anniversary of the podcast, and Jericho actually he responded to the tweet where I included it, and I tweeted out the article saying great reads. That was pretty cool. But ranking the top 10 most listen or must listen episodes of Talk is Jericho / my favorite episode. So I put the New Day on there. That was a great episode. And he does not call him Trudy Fruity Booty in the podcast either. It's just a very entertaining listen. That was from right before SummerSlam. Check that one out. The Batista episode, 2 parts from the summer of 2014, were very, very good. I'm a huge Batista fan. That was a great episode. The Christian episode, also from that summer of the 2014, was really, really good. Those guys have great chemistry. And even just recently, the Freddie Prinze Jr. episode, which I listened to twice. Once for the first time when it first aired, and then about a week or so later with John on the car ride home from a basketball game or something, because he talks about his time in creative, being a diehard wrestling fan. It's a really, really good listen, a lot better than you would think it would be. And considering, he's a mainstream celebrity, what does he know about wrestling, you would be surprised. It's a great listen. I would highly suggest checking that one out. And the first KFC's third question here, what is one NXT feud that you wanted to see but never happened? That's a great question. There wasn't one when I read that question that came to mind, but I did think of Owens and Samoa Joe from this past summer. I mean, we got kind of a taste of the feud when Samoa Joe first came in. They kind of did a little bit of a feud right after Joe debuted. They did that one match in NXT, and then Owens moved into that feud with Balor when he dropped the belt to him in Japan at Beast in the East. So we never really got the full fleshed out feud between Joe and Owens. And that's something I would love to see. I think if Joe really is main roster bound, as it is rumored to be at some point after WrestleMania, that is a feud. I mean, if it's going to be as a heel, then maybe not. But down the line, Joe and Owens, take my money. I feel like it would be a great feud/match. We only got a small taste of it, around this time last year. Frankish15, also from YouTube, will New Day versus Rock and Usos happen at WrestleMania this year? I don't think so. I think someone else asked me about that on Twitter last week, right after the Rock segment on Raw. I don't think so, just because I feel like they would not waste, I mean, I hate to say that about New Day, but as entertaining as New Day are, they are not top-tier talent. I mean, look at the people that Rock faced, honestly, in the time that he was here. I could see, like, Stone Cold Steve Austin, if he was coming back for one match. At this point, I don't think he is. But if he was going to, having like a quick match with Miz or Heath Slater just because it's an easy match and he can have it be done with in 2 minutes. I don't feel like the New Day should be buried in a minute or two like the core was back at WrestleMania 27. But anyway, I don't think so. I mean, look at the people that Rock has faced since he came back. I know he faced fucking Awesome Truth, The Miz and R-Truth in 2011 at Survivor Series, but that's just because Cena was in the match too, and it was more about them than it was, Awesome Truth. But other than that, he's only faced John Cena and CM Punk, two of the biggest stars, arguably, in the last 5 to 10 years. So I don't think he'd be wasted in a match with Usos and New Day. I would love to see him wrestle. I just don't think I don't think he'll be wrestling, period, just because maybe, I mean, I guess I could see him having an easy match because his agents have pressured him not to wrestle at the risk of getting injured before his next movie shoot. So I can kind of see them doing that, but I don't think the segment last week was to set up any six-man tag team match for WrestleMania. Just because I do not want to see Usos and New Day dragged out until that long, because Rock isn't wrestling on Raw, so it'd be kind of a waste. He will be there in some capacity, obviously, but I don't think you will be seeing that six-man tag team match at WrestleMania. His next question, should Kalisto feud Sin Cara when he returns? That's a good question. It'd be interesting, I guess, if you turn Sin Cara heel. If Kalisto is going to be doing his own thing in singles competition, you could still have the two be friends, but I just do not give a shit about Sin Cara, just regardless. So maybe having him do something meaningful and turning him heel and feuding with Kalisto would be a nice, logical feud, like, oh, in my absence, you won the title. What a fucking selfish prick. I guess you could do something like that. Maybe not. He would not say those words in a PG environment. I mean, then again, Rock said penis, but that's, llama penis, but that's just because he's the fucking Rock. But, yeah, I feel like it'd be a good feud. I don't know how great the matches would be just because Sin Cara is botched Cara. They could be good. It's very hit or miss with Sin Cara nowadays. I mean, I guess it really always has been, but it'd be nice for you to see. I don't think they're gonna do it, but it'd be a cool for you to see, and I would at least give a shit, at least a percentage of a shit about Sin Cara if he was going to be feuding with Kalisto. Mark S. from Facebook, do you think Shinsuke Nakamura is going right to NXT, or should he have gone right to the main roster? I like that he's going to NXT first. I think the Bullet Club members, Doc Gallows and Carl Anderson, will be main roster bound as soon as they officially sign with WWE. Nakamura, from what I've been hearing, they want to kind of get him adjusted to the WWE style. I know Styles has never worked the WWE style, no pun intended, either. But I feel like he's just a big enough name where it's fine. Nakamura is a huge name too, don't get me wrong, but I feel like I feel like he speaks English. I don't know. I'm not too familiar with his work. I've seen a couple of his matches. The guy is fucking great. You don't need me to tell you that if you know who he is. But I think it's a good fit. It doesn't need to be for long. He doesn't need to be in NXT as long as Sami Zayn or Finn Balor have been. He could be there for a short period of time before getting called up. But I like it. It adds a lot more... even more star power to NXT than we already have, and I feel like he can make for some great matches, including, spoiler alert, his match for TakeOver Dallas. If you don't want to hear the spoiler, skip ahead 10 seconds. Sami Zayn. That's going to be a kick-ass match that I can't wait for. His second question, will Triple H's reign as WWE World Heavyweight Champion be long or short? Will he possibly hold the title? Could he possibly hold the championship until SummerSlam, for example? I don't think so. SummerSlam is way too long. Like, Brock Lesnar was one thing just because he wrestled every once in a while. Triple H doesn't wrestle on Raw either. I guess, but I feel like I know Reigns and Triple H is so predictable with Reigns winning back the belt. And someone else asked me a question I'll get to a little bit later on about maybe because Seth Rollins is coming back, should he hold the belt until Rollins comes back? I don't think so. I feel like the less we have Triple H as champion, the better, simply because I just feel like, I mean, Triple H shouldn't be champion regardless. I didn't mind the outcome of the Rumble just because it makes sense for Mania. I'm not really too enthralled with it, but it makes sense, and I don't want to see Triple H as champion past Mania. I feel like Lesnar, that whole experiment, Triple H will be on Raw, Lesnar won't be. But we tried that whole experiment with Lesnar for 8 months. Not that it didn't work, but over time it's like, okay, where the fuck is this guy? And I feel like they should have given the belt back to Lesnar now, because he's working more dates than he was back in late 2014, early 2015. He's working house show events now, so it'd be cool to see him with the belt now. So I feel like we kind of got the time periods, flip-flopped a little bit. But I'll get back to that when someone else asks a similar question a little bit later on. Would you prefer to see a triple threat or a singles match for the World Heavyweight Championship at WrestleMania? And if triple threat, who would be the third person? A singles match. It's got to be a singles match. We've gone triple threat. I mean, again, I talked about this last year, right before WrestleMania, but to do 2 triple threats in a row at WrestleMania is kind of overdoing. I know you technically really can't consider last year's main event a triple threat because it became a triple threat at the last second, but in the record books, it goes down as a triple threat match, not Lesnar and Reigns one-on-one. It was Lesnar, Reigns, Rollins at the end of the day. So we should not get another triple threat match in the main event of WrestleMania. Doing 3 ways in Mania to begin with is a bit, much. Just because I feel like it's WrestleMania, it should be a one-on-one matchup. I'll take a triple threat over a 4-way any day. Like the 4-way that we got at WrestleMania 16, 2000, whatever, was horrendous. I thought it was a complete waste. Someone else asked a question about that, and I'll get back to that a little bit later on. I mean, we've had some pretty good triple threats. I mean, you look at WrestleMania's 24, 20, 30, and 31 were all amazing, but it comes to a point where you can't do them every single year just because the fans are going to poop on the match. You got to do something else. So no, I'm a big proponent of having just one-on-one matches at WrestleMania. Who will be competing for the Divas Championship at WrestleMania, do you think? It's got to be Charlotte Banks. I don't really think there's many other options. I mean, I guess, again, you could do a 4-way with Paige and Becky, but I'd much rather just see them do a 3-way with Becky, Charlotte, and Banks, just because I don't want to see another multi-women match. That'd be a great match, but I don't know. I don't really want to see. We've had tag team matches, Lumberjill matches, 6 Diva, 8 Diva, 10 Diva tag team matches over the years, and they're all fucking terrible. The last truly great women's match we got at WrestleMania was at WrestleMania 22, a one-on-one match. We have not had a singles match from the women at WrestleMania in over a goddamn decade. In a decade, pretty much. So this should be the year that streak breaks. We have just a straight-up singles match with Charlotte and Banks, if they can keep the 2 apart, slightly. And they've kept the 2 apart up until this point, which is, I commend them for that. But if they continue to do so, book it right up until Mania, it will feel like a meaningful WrestleMania match, and hopefully Banks will there win the championship. In his final, he's got a couple more questions. Final 2 questions from Mark. First one being, do you like the AJ Styles-Chris Jericho feud? And do you think it could have huge potential with Jericho chasing Styles? Could it be possible feud of the year? Feud of the year, I mean, maybe. I guess it's kind of, exaggerating a little bit. At this point, I don't know. We've only seen 1 match. But I did like the match. I do like the idea of a Jericho-Styles feud, either going into Fastlane or even WrestleMania. But Jericho as the heel, fucking take my money. He's a good babyface, but by this point, he's stale. He's stagnant as a babyface. And I feel like turning heel will rejuvenate his character and give us a very fresh feud with AJ Styles in the meantime. That could give us even better matches than what we saw last week, which is even more exciting. And his final question, apart from the feud involving Samoa Joe, which you discussed on Wrestle Rant Radio, what other feuds would you like to see Austin Aries involved in NXT in the future? Basically anybody. I mean, him and Balor, you put him in the ring with anybody in NXT, it's going to be a great feud/match, because the guy is a great talker. If you watch TNA from 2011 up until he left last year, the guy is a great talker. He was kind of underutilized towards the end. They didn't really do much with him. I thought the Dirty Heel stuff was great, but other than that, the Dirty Heels reunion in 2015, they really wasted the guy, by and large, towards the end of his run. But that said, I feel like any feud, I mean, him and Balor, him and Joe, that I mentioned in Wrestle Rant Radio that you just talked about too, him and Nakamura, I mean, you put him in the ring with anybody in NXT, it's going to be a great match. So I'm looking forward to whatever he's involved in, regardless, in NXT going forward. Roger W's got 2 questions here, also from Facebook. His first question was, will Cody Hall ever make it to stateside? I think at some point he will. I saw him wrestle at an NEW show, Northeast Wrestling, in the summer of 2014. He wasn't great. I feel like that was before he went to the Bullet Club. He was just starting out. I read a rumor at some point that WWE actually offered him a contract and he turned them down. I don't know how true that is because I haven't heard it much since then. But he's a fine fit for the Bullet Club, so maybe at some point after he continues to improve, I haven't seen some of his recent work, but after he improves more, maybe we will see him make it to stateside at some point. Second question, do you think there will ever be a full-fledged Bullet Club in the WWE, and will you see a Balor, and could we see a Balor or Young Bucks in it? I don't think we'll ever see the full Bullet Club in WWE. They're not buying the rights to the group. I know that was rumored at some point a couple of weeks ago. That's not happening. But a full-fledged Bullet Club, I don't think we're going to be seeing like the Young Bucks in WWE. Again, maybe at some point, but I feel like they don't want to go there. They're just having too much fun in Japan. Then again, I thought the same thing about AJ Styles, so who knows? Never say never in WWE, especially nowadays. But Tonga and who else they have in that group, I'm not really sure. I don't think they're going to sign all of them. They tried to sign a few more, from what I heard. One of them signed with New Japan. They tried to sign him to a trainer deal, I believe, in WWE. But I don't think we're going to see the full Bullet Club in WWE, but we could see a fraction of it, as has been rumored with Styles, Gallows, and Anderson. And the Young Bucks, probably not, because again, I don't see them joining WWE at all, much less in the near future. Maybe at some point down the line, but at least not right now. Balor, I could see kind of being a part of it. I feel like the money right now, I mean, we could see a Bullet Club with Balor and not Styles. And, maybe the other way around, and we get a Balor Styles feud at some point when Styles gets called up, or rather Balor gets called up from NXT to the main roster. Excuse me. And so maybe that at some point I feel like there is the money. The money isn't a Balor-Styles feud more than Balor and Styles being in a group together. They're both such huge personalities. I can't really see both of them kind of being the leaders of a four-man group. Doesn't really make much sense. So you either have the group go with Styles. I'd put him with Balor just because he already has the Balor Club thing going anyway. But yeah, I feel like we will see not the Bullet Club, but a version of the Bullet Club in WWE, maybe as the Balor Club. Paul Lutz got a couple questions here. Samoa Joe, AJ Styles, and James Storm, although he came back. And finally, Austin Aries. Do you think Abyss would come to the WWE one day? I don't think so. Again, never say never. I would have never imagined James Storm coming to WWE just because he's a little bit on the older side, almost 40 years old. He's been with TNA since day one, as was AJ Styles, but James Storm, to his credit, I mean, I love the guy, but he's not an AJ Styles. He's not a world-renowned performer. But I was surprised he came in. I was happy, albeit for 2 appearances before he went back to TNA for more money, which I can't really blame him. But as far as Abyss goes, James Storm at least had some potential to do some good things in NXT. I've always liked Abyss, but I've never really thought, he'd be a great WWE guy, because he feels like a Kane McFoley ripoff. All the people that we've gotten in WWE from TNA so far, Samoa Joe, Styles, James Storm, and Austin Aries, are their own people. Abyss, at this point in TNA, has become his own character, but if you were to put him in WWE, people would be like, as the version he is now, people would be like, oh, what the fuck is this? It's like Kane's little brother. And if that's the gimmick they want to go with, fine, but at this point, he hasn't done anything meaningful in TNA in years. I guess neither did James Storm before he came over to NXT either, but I don't really see as much of an upside with Abyss. If he signed with WWE when they offered him a contract back in 06, 07, I could see that, then being a money player. At least for a short time. I don't know how long it would have been before he became just another guy on the roster. But, I feel like if he came to WWE now in NXT, who cares? At least James Storm's still a really good worker. Abyss can't have a great match to save his life. I haven't seen him had a good match in years, much less ever. At least in a long, long time. So, no, I don't see him coming over to WWE. Maybe. Again, we saw James Storm in WWE, so never say never. But I'm not holding out hope, or not like I really want to see him in WWE anyway. But it's not like I'm really, holding my breath or whatever the phrase is. Last week at the Royal Rumble, WWE acknowledged IWGP. When do you think they will finally acknowledge TNA? I don't think they will. I hate to keep on giving this answer, never say never, but I never thought a couple of years ago, maybe. They did acknowledge Ring of Honor in the Pipe Bomb promo Punk did, and they've acknowledged it on the website ever since then. I feel like that was kind of the breakthrough moment for Ring of Honor and WWE, and they've kind of been They do exist in the WWE universe, the proverbial WWE universe. TNA does not. I mean, they acknowledge that, oh, Jamie Storm, a former world champion, you know, that he wrestled Samoa Joe and Sting in Florida. So they do kind of exist. I mean, Road Dogg mentioned them in a WWE Network podcast. Sting mentioned them on his own DVD. So I guess it's there. I mean, those are baby steps. That's the most of TNA that I've heard ever in WWE. I know Stone Cold name dropped them on his own podcast in late 2014. That was a big no-no in his podcast with Vince. But other than that, I never hear anything about TNA and WWE, nor why would we, you know? They're not a competition. Maybe they're just kind of an annoyance at this point. I don't really know. Maybe at some point after they close. I'm not even joking. Maybe after they close. I'm not saying in the near future, but like down the line, could TNA be acknowledged in the WWE universe? And someone else asked the question about them being bought out by WWE. I'll answer that towards the end. That was a great question. But as far as like right now, again, maybe at some point they're getting there. They've mentioned them more now in the past like couple of months than they ever have before. So never say never, but I just don't really see it happening. It's not really that big of a deal, but it would be nice if they said, oh, AJ Styles, the face of TNA for 10 years, but the acronym TNA in and of itself is embarrassing, so why would they even bother bringing that up? Maybe Impact Wrestling, but not fucking TNA. If they only had different initials, maybe they would have a chance of being acknowledged in the WWE universe, being existent in the WWE universe. How long do we have to endure seeing Neville get buried? I don't know if I would call him getting buried. I mean, again, I use that term that term is used very loosely nowadays. I don't know if he's getting buried right now, but he's not being utilized to his full, potential. I think that goes without saying. I've talked about before, RJ and I've talked about before in WrestleRate Radio, the guy is WWE's premier loser. And that's not a reflection of his talent or anything like that. The guy's a great goddamn wrestler, but he always fucking loses. So how can you get behind a guy who always loses? Maybe not much longer. I don't even know what he's doing right now. I mean, they had the thing going with Miz for a while, but that was about it, and they dropped that out of nowhere for no reason. So, I mean, maybe after WrestleMania, because right now they're not going to give him a one-on-one feud at WrestleMania. He had a match with Kalisto last week, the SmackDown tapings. That was actually pretty good. I'd love to see that turn into something. I don't think it will, but that would be cool to get a best of 5 or 7 series from those guys. That'd be kick-ass. But I can't really tell you. I mean, maybe until after WrestleMania, because they're definitely not going to push him on the road to WrestleMania because there's so many other things going on right now. After AJ Styles, who do you think would be the next wrestler in TNA to become synonymous with them? Great question. Angle at this point, he started his career in WWE. That's where he got the most success. Obviously, that was where he was most popular, had his better matches, in my opinion. He's had some great matches in TNA, don't get me wrong, but his best run was in WWE. But at this point, he's been with TNA longer than he ever was with WWE, which is surprising to say, but it's true. So I guess either Angle or Bobby Roode. Bobby Roode's a guy he's been there since day one. James Storm was too, but then he left. So I would go with Bobby Roode just because I feel like he is the best TNA original that they have, and Abyss too, I guess, but he wasn't there since the very beginning, but close enough. Abyss has been there since the beginning, but Abyss is fucking Abyss, and he's not ever going to be a top player. At least Bobby Roode always feels like a big deal in TNA, regardless of whether he's going after the World Championship or not. But yeah, either Angle or Bobby Roode, I feel like are TNA guys, especially Bobby Roode, maybe more so than Angle. But Angle has been in TNA longer than he ever was in WWE, believe it or not. And his final question here, if you were to trade one WWE star to one TNA star, who would it be and why? That's a great question too. If I had to cheat, I would say Ascension for beer money. That's not a fair trade, but you guys know I love playing SmackDown vs. Raw 2007 a lot. Do you know I think they had it in 06 and in 08 too with the GM modes. Remember there was an option. If you won your first year as GM of the year, you could cheat and turn on the option trade off or trade on or whatever. Because they would usually, if you had trade whatever the default option was, you couldn't trade anyone that was like higher popularity from someone in the other brand. For like if you had like a Sylvain Grenier and you're trading them for like a John Cena, it wouldn't work because John Cena's popularity is through the roof. It's not even equal. But if you had the option off or on, I forgot what it was, but the other, if you did whatever the non-default option was, then you could trade anyone for anyone. Like you could trade Daivari for Batista, and it would be completely okay. So I would love to see, that would be like this option here with Ascension and beer money, but that's not really fair. To stick true to your question though, one-on-one, I feel like this would be a good trade. Jack Swagger for Bobby Lashley. And before you give me the old, Jack Swagger's a loser in WWE and Lashley's a star, half the people that are in TNA were losers in WWE. I mean, you look at EC3, the guy was absolutely nothing. And if I said, oh, I'd trade EC3 for fucking, Samoa Joe, you would laugh at me. But look at EC3. He's become their biggest star in the promotion right now. So I don't think it's really that bad of a comparison. He's a former world champion. Jack Swagger, regardless of what you think of him, as boring or not, he's a great wrestler. I feel like he could have a good run for himself in TNA, because at this point, WWE ain't doing jack shit with that guy. And Bobby Lashley is a guy that I would love to see back in WWE, albeit for one more run, because not that they didn't use him properly. I mean, the guy was pushed to the fucking moon, but he got injured right after he had that big WWE title match with John Cena. And reportedly, he was a victim of racism backstage, so that played a major factor in his departure, but that was 8 years ago in 2008. So I feel like at this point, it would be he could be back in WWE at some point and fulfill his full potential. And after improving a lot in TNA, I think it's definitely possible. At E13A from Twitter, I hate to rush through your questions, guys, but I do have to go in 20 minutes, so I can't spend too much time on each question. But again, I apologize in advance, but you guys have a lot of great questions. I just don't have much time. But at E13A, his question from Twitter was, do you think a cruiserweight/light heavyweight division sounds better in theory than it actually does in practice? Cheap plug, not even a cheap plug, but he had a great idea on how to handle it. At JJF Tweets, wrote an article for my website, Next Era Wrestling, a couple of weeks ago. It's up on the website if you just go to opinion under Columnist Corner, that category. And he wrote a great article about the light heavyweight division. I think at E13A, you read it. I mean, you responded to one of the tweets that I sent out when I tweeted the article. So you know what I'm talking about. But he had a great idea for how you could bring back the cruiserweight division, who could be a part of it. Again, it sounds better in theory than it does in execution, just because WWE, everything sounds better in theory with this company. And then when you actually see it play out with the way they book it, they usually botch it. I mean, I want to give them some credit, and they do some things right. Some of the time, but most of the time when you have this great idea in theory, very rarely does it play out the way that it should, just because they kind of fuck up the booking more often than not. I mean, I hate to sound like a pessimist, but it's true. So yeah, that's what I've said about the cruiserweight division. I mean, Jared had a great idea for it, but I feel like if WWE was to take that route and bring it back, it wouldn't be what it could be or what it once was. His second question, what did you think of Triple H's Rumble performance? I personally think it's not getting enough credit. I mean, he took a near-elimination super kick from Dolph Ziggler that almost convinced me that Dolph Ziggler was getting pushed again. I agree. I feel like it was a better performance than Roman Reigns. That much is for sure. Again, I'm not thrilled with Triple H winning, but that ending was great. Him and Dean Ambrose, there was a sliver of hope there for a second with me, and I'm sure many others as well, that he could have won the World Heavyweight Championship, that he could have won the WWE World title. So that was a great ending, and absolutely, that was one of the best parts of the match. When Dolph Ziggler super kicked him, Triple H falls backwards, and then at the last second he catches the rope. That was a great spot. I mean, give him all the shit that you want as a wrestler or whatever, but that was a great goddamn spot. So I agree, his Rumble performance, while not amazing or anything, but for the time that he was in there, was really, really good. I could have done without them fully focusing on just Triple H and Reigns and everyone else just being an afterthought. But for the time he was in there, he put forth a damn good performance. And that ending, and especially that near elimination that you mentioned, was goddamn great. And his third question, Push Repackage release Big E, Kalisto, and Bubba Ray Dudley. Always love these questions. You guys gave me a couple of these this week, and this was one of the good ones. Big E, Kalisto, and Bubba Ray Dudley. I would push Kalisto just because I feel like he will be a star regardless. I really hate to say, because Big E is perfect as it is, so why would I, that sounds weird, but why would I repackage him? Bubba Ray Dudley could be repackaged into Bully Ray, but then I would have to fire Big E. So it's hard to say. I mean, I would repackage, I wrote down here repackage Bubba Ray just because he could become Bully Ray, but Big E has more potential than Bubba Ray does. Bubba Ray is it's 40 years old, and if he left tomorrow, it wouldn't make that big of a difference. I mean, I love Team 3D or the Dudleys, whatever. So I put down here repackage Bubba and release Big E, but because Big E doesn't need repackaging, and I feel like Kalisto is the guy that you should be pushing because he's going to be a star regardless, I feel like. So I guess you could do it the other way around, but it's hard to say because Big E doesn't really need to be repackaged. But releasing Bubba Ray really wouldn't make a difference. So it could really go either way. I hate to say it, but I put down Bubba Ray repackaged and then release Big E. I know I'm going to get heat for that one. At Brad Berdar, his first question was, if WWE does Breaking Ground Season 2, who is someone you would like to see featured more? Good question. Samoa Joe would be cool. I know he's not like an up-and-coming rookie or something, but neither is Sami Zayn. We got a lot of Sami Zayn Finn Balor, we never really got a lot of on the show. I would love to see more of him, kind of behind-the-scenes stuff with him. Samoa Joe specifically, just because, like I said, we don't really hear much from him, and just being a part of NXT and what it's like for him, and coming over, not mentioning TNA, obviously, but just what it's like for him to be in this renaissance of his career right now. And Alexa Bliss, too. We got a lot of women featured. Nia Jax, we got Bayley, Carmella. I would love to see more of Alexa Bliss. She is blissful. She is gorgeous. I know blissful is a negative term, is it not? But Bliss is absolutely gorgeous. I've had a crush on her for years, long before she debuted in NXT TV. I would love to see more of her featured prominently on the show. I mean, they've shown her a few times, but she's never really gotten the character development that Carmella and Baron Corbin and Bayley and Nia Jax have, and the rest of that group. His second question, why did Nikki Bella's surgery get more attention from WWE than Tyson Kidd's, even though his injury was far worse? Total Divas, dude. Total Divas is the two-word answer for that question. I mean, that's really it. I know Nikki Bella's surgery has gotten more exposure than Cesaro's or Tyson Kidd's or whatever, but I know he's on Total Divas too, and they've kind of brushed upon it on Total Divas, and yes, I do watch. Shoot me now. But I enjoy it to an extent. You can't blame me. It's a guilty pleasure of mine. I'm sorry. But Nikki Bella is like, I know, again, Tyson Kidd is a part of the show, but Nikki Bella is the show. Her and Brie are the show. So it's not really surprising that when, I don't think it's going to be next season, I think it will be the tail end of this season, she's going to be a big part of Total Divas. She will be like the main storyline, as if she isn't already, but she will be the biggest part of that show going forward. Previously said that those who team with Miz always come off as second best. Go to observation, by the way. Is that just a coincidence? Well, thank you, but I've always just kind of noticed. I mean, I'm sure I'm not the only one. That anyone who does team with Miz have always come off as the second best, not in their team, but when they split apart. I mean, you look at Awesome Truth, you look at R-Truth, John Morrison, Alex Riley, Damian Sandow. It's always the same thing with these people. John Morrison had more potential, but he left. Alex Riley faded off into irrelevancy. R-Truth faded off into irrelevancy. Damian Sandow isn't even on fucking TV nowadays. I know he was on the Rumble pre-show, but before that, when was he on Raw? Like, to wrestle a match. Ever. He hasn't wrestled a match on Raw since May. And that was over 7 or 8 months ago, which is ridiculous. But, yeah, I don't know. I guess it's just kind of a coincidence. It's not like, oh, we're going to put you with Miz and then bury you. I don't feel like that's by design. So I feel like it is just a coincidence, but it is a weird coincidence of that. It's kind of like the Miz curse. I mean, Miz has always worked best when he's with somebody else. I mean, I like his Hollywood gimmick right now because he knows how to be a heel, but he's always worked best when he has someone to work off of and kind of bully around, like an Alex Riley or an R-Truth or Damian Sandow, so on and so forth. So, and Daniel Bryan even him from early 2010 when he was bullying him around. That was some of Miz's best work, and they had a great match in Night of Champions, one of my favorite matches of his, and Daniel Bryan's, to be honest. But I think it's just more of a coincidence than it is by design. And his final question here, would you like to see Triple H hold the belt beyond Mania so he can feud with Seth Rollins when he returns? I guess that makes sense to have Triple H be champion, and then when Rollins comes back, and not that it makes sense, I mean, it kind of does, but in that, Rollins will go after the person that kind of kicked him to the side and then won the championship for himself and kind of reclaim the championship that he never lost. It's a story that's great, but I don't, less of Triple H as the champion, the better. I do not need to see him with the belt until SummerSlam. We don't even know that Rollins is coming back at SummerSlam. It's just kind of assumed, but so what if he's out even longer? Are you going to keep the belt on Triple H until then? I know like with Sheamus, that was, I think, the initial plan a couple of years ago in 2000, not a couple at this point, but back in 2010, they were going to keep the belt on Sheamus throughout the summer of 2010 until Triple H came back, but then it was revealed Triple H isn't coming back at this point. He was still, I think he had another surgery or whatever, and they were going to do him and Triple H they did it at WrestleMania. They're going to do a rematch at SummerSlam for the championship. I don't know if they would have had Triple H won, maybe. That was the last time that Triple H was ever considered in championship contention. And then, because Triple H didn't come back until like February for the match with The Undertaker, and they held him off TV until then. But before that, he was, they just took the championship off of Sheamus because they said, well, fuck it. If he's not going to be back in time, we might as well just take the title off Sheamus. So, I feel like we're in a similar situation right now with Seth Rollins. We do not know for sure that he will be back by SummerSlam. So I do not want to see Triple H with the championship until then, for no reason, if Rollins won't be back until even Survivor Series, which I don't feel like will be the case, but you never know, because his injury was pretty serious. Next question from at Claudio M996, or at Claudio M96 underscore. His question was, thoughts on AJ Styles hitting the Styles Clash for the first time on SmackDown? It was cool. He had a good match with Curtis Axel. I know people were kind of freaking out, thinking they banned the move. They did not ban the move. He did it on SmackDown. If they banned it, he wouldn't go for it. Simple as that. But I thought they should have waited it out a little bit longer. It was a cool moment. It's not a big deal. But they teased it at the Rumble. They teased it on Raw. Why not wait until Fastlane to give it away? Like they did with the GTS with Hideo. And he has yet to hit it on TV. He hit it at the NXT Live event right before WrestleMania, but never on TV. So I wish they would have saved it for a little bit later. But other than that, it's a cool move. It's glad, I'm very happy to see they're not, they're allowing him to use the move in WWE after all the injuries that he's, only recently, never in TNA, but some people just don't know how to take the move. That's their fault, not AJ's. At Scarlet One, have you ever seen the St. Valentine's Day Massacre pay-per-view from the Attitude Era in February 1999? I have. Surprisingly enough, or, interestingly enough, actually, I did watch it on Valentine's Day itself last year, and not a good show. I mean, again, I've talked about this before. I'm just not a huge fan of the Attitude Era show. It's chaotic. I'm not saying it's a bad show. I just didn't really enjoy it that much. It's just a total clusterfuck of a show. And the only thing I can really remember from it was Big Show's debut, which I already knew anyway. And then Austin and McMahon in the main event. Other than that, yes, I have watched it. I did not really like it. I'll probably watch it again and then review it. I might not review it for Valentine's Day this year. Maybe next year, just because... we'll see. We'll see. I might watch it again and then put up a video on WrestleRant with my review of the show on Valentine's Day itself. If not this year, then next year. But yes, I have seen it. Didn't really love it all that much. Their second question. Would you have made the WrestleMania 2000 main event a singles match between The Rock and Triple H instead of the four-way with Show and Foley? Absolutely. I talked about this before. I thought the four-way at WrestleMania was a total clusterfuck. One of the worst WrestleMania main events of all time. Went way too long. Mick Foley looked horrible. Big Show's involvement was pointless. And it only really got good with Rock and Triple H. Honestly. So yeah, it should have just been Rock and Triple H straight up. Like their match from Backlash should have happened to WrestleMania. Like I get giving Foley his WrestleMania moment, but leading into your next question, speaking of which, would you have preferred if Foley never wrestled again after the No Way Out Hell in the Cell match, retirement match? I absolutely would have preferred that. I talked about it in my No Way Out 2000 review, cheap plug, right here on WrestleRant here on the channel. But that was such a great match, and the send-off and everything about the build-up and just the match itself was so amazing. To have him come back again and again and again was just the law of diminishing returns, pretty much. Like you looked it up in the dictionary, you see Mick Foley's face. Love the mixter, but he did not need to come back as many times as he did. And I would have preferred if he never wrestled again after that. What is one match that has not aged well for you? Great question. I couldn't think of one. The only matches that I remember kind of like that are just matches that have only gotten better. Like I like Triple H and Undertaker at 27 when I watched it back last year a lot more than I did watching it the first time 4 years ago or 5 years ago at this point. Shit. I can't think of a match that has not aged well. If I think of one, I'll talk about it in a future episode. But as of right now, nothing comes to mind, honestly enough, which is, surprisingly enough, which is pretty weird. And their next question, what is your favorite wrestling match from 2015, excluding WWE? I watched a couple of New Japan matches that were great from Wrestle Kingdom 9, were awesome. A lot of Ring of Honor matches. Roderick Strong versus Jay Lethal was great. The TV one I watched. I didn't watch the one at the pay-per-view, but the TV one was amazing. Actually, both of them. When Roderick Strong won the belt, and then the first match they had on TV, the second match in the series, from the summer of 2015 was great too. And then other matches, basically any match from Lucha Underground, honestly. They had a lot of great matches last year. Pentagon and Vampiro from Ultima Lucha was fucking fantastic. And Vampiro, you are a true master. Like, that was insane. Like, it's a great moment, and you are ready, my son, Vampiro. And the crowd goes fucking nuts in the temple. Amazing. Amazing. Either that or the All Night Long match, probably my favorite Lucha Underground match to date, between Johnny Mundo and Prince Puma for the Lucha Underground title was fantastic too, so I would go with that as well. I don't know if you've noticed, but WWE's been trying to do damage control on Flo Rida's appearance. First, their website held a poll on who won between him and Bo Rida. Now Bo is on a WWE's wackiest rappers list to place an embarrassment on him over Flo Rida. Personally, I think it's travesty that Bo Rida is being buried to protect Flo's heat, but do you have any particular thoughts? I didn't really care about that too much, nor have I really paid attention to it. I did notice that, like in the poll, that fans voted Bo Rida as the better rapper than Flo Rida. I didn't really care too much about that. I just love the rap. I thought it was hilarious. I thought it was great. And the Social Outcast kind of like dying on the floor of laughter was hilarious too. Bo Dallas has always been really funny, but I thought that was a great performance by him last week on Raw. I don't even hate Flo Rida. I thought it was just his rap was not good, but Bo Rida was just on point last Monday night. At Swagzio, do you see Vince McMahon ever buying out TNA? No. Again, maybe after, once they kind of die down even a little bit more than they are right now, just for the archives, not to get any of their talent. I mean, they do have some good talent left, but it's not like they've already kind of taken most of it, like with AJ and Samoa Joe, Austin Aries, James Storm before he went back to TNA. He's not going to buy out TNA for the talent, maybe for the archives and the footage, because there is some good footage in there for like Angle and Sting that they could use for like future Hall of Fame video packages. Sting upcoming this year, they're not going to buy out TNA before that, but you know what I mean. So maybe down the line, I'm not going to completely rule it out, but they wouldn't buy it for the reason that you might think. Like with WCW, they bought it for the footage partly, but just to kind of put them out of business, put them out of their misery pretty much. Vince does not give a shit about TNA, otherwise he probably would have done it a long time ago. I mean, they're supported by, they're backed by a lot of money with Pan Energy and Dixie Carter's parents and whoever else. So probably not any point in the near future. Maybe down the line again for the footage, but not for really any other reason other than that. Who is your least favorite wrestler in TNA right now? I've never really liked DJZ. The guy's a great wrestler, but the gimmick is just fucking annoying. He's not doing as much anymore, so I wouldn't say him. Micah is just boring as shit. That guy was Camacho in WWE. Never gave a crap about him then. Don't give a crap about him now. And Jesse Goddard, I don't care about either. He just comes off as so generic. He's gotten better as a worker. I just don't give a shit about him either. At Charm Artistic, who would you rather see face The Undertaker at WrestleMania other than Braun Strowman? Kevin Owens. John Cena won't be ready to go. Kevin Owens would be a great fit for Undertaker at WrestleMania. I feel like that'd be a good match and even a better feud. Repackage, release, and push. Kalisto, Neville, and Ziggler. Not as hard of a question, but still a good one. Push Kalisto, like I said earlier. Repackage Neville. The whole superhero thing is kind of played out by this point. And then really Ziggler. The guy's done it all. I don't really get excited when Ziggler comes down nowadays. Again, the guy's a great wrestler, but he's done it all. They're not going to push him beyond a certain level at this point. I think we all kind of know that. So I would release him, push Kalisto. The guy's a star, and repackage Neville into something that's not a superhero. In your opinion, will AJ Styles just become another guy in the main roster in a few months? I'm not going to say no. You never really know what happens with these guys, but so far, so good. His first week in WWE was great with how they handled him in the Rumble, on the website, on Raw, SmackDown. The guy is already a star in the eyes of the casual viewers from how I look at it. But, I mean, there's a chance he could be another guy in the roster in a few months, but I feel like they didn't sign him. They're putting a lot of money into this guy. In Sin Cara, they botched too, but that was kind of partly Sin Cara's fault too, because the guy was an asshole backstage and he didn't know fucking English. But Styles is not an asshole backstage. I've met him. He's a great dude. And also, he knows English, so he should be fine. But, I mean, there's a chance he could become just another guy on the roster. I hope not. He just feels genuinely special right now. Again, it's only been a week. There's always the chance he could just flounder out, but for right now, fizzle out. But for right now, he feels really special, and WWE's putting a lot of money in AJ Styles, so I feel like with all the merch that he sold in the last week alone, much less the first 2 hours of when a shirt went up in WWE Shop, they're not going to let him flop. They're going to have, hopefully, some big plans. I don't know about world title plans, but he deserves to be at that level, but they'll at least treat him like a big deal, and he won't become like another superstar. He won't become like Tyler Breeze, pretty much, who had potential, but he's no Tyler Breeze, trust me. What do you think is the best way to debut the Bullet Club in WWE? Probably the night after WrestleMania. I would, again, put him with Balor and not Styles, just because I feel like Styles is fine on his own. You already have the Balor Club established in NXT with all the merchandise for Finn Balor. So either at the TakeOver special in Dallas, and by that point, they should be cleared to go. I mean, I heard they're going to be in WWE by March, but they've already taped all the NXT tapings until TakeOver. So they're not going to debut on NXT before then. So probably at either TakeOver or the night after WrestleMania. With either Styles or Balor, I would go with Balor and have him. I feel like, I heard they're going to be part of the main roster though, so who knows. But either, at TakeOver or more likely the night after WrestleMania. And finally, from Cody Collier 37, push, repackage, and release, Kevin Owens, Finn Balor, Dean Ambrose. Great question. This is another one of the really good ones. There's not really a right or wrong answer because you're going to be fucked no matter what. But I'd push Balor just because the guy's a star. All three of these guys are stars. But Balor, they're going to make the most money off of with all the merchandise and shit. So push Balor. Ambrose and Owens, they're kind of on the same level for me. Both of them are really, really, really good and are both great talents. So if you release one and keep the other, it's kind of equal in my opinion. But I just said repackage Ambrose because Owens is good as it is. Same thing with kind of the Big E thing that I mentioned earlier. Owens is already good as it is. So I would repackage Ambrose and maybe into a heel or become, more loony and more crazy. They kind of tampered off with that in the last couple of months, in the past year or so. So I would repackage Ambrose and release Owens. It kills me to say that, but him and Ambrose are kind of on the same level. And I would repackage Ambrose before I would repackage Owens, just because Owens is so good. And that's it, guys, for hashtag AskGSM for February 1st, 2016. Again, we might be doing audio for the foreseeable future when my class schedule is just stacked on Mondays. But again, thank you for joining me as always in this kind of abbreviated version of the show, and hopefully it won't be this short going forward. It might have to be for the next couple of months just because I have class. I have to go to class in literally like 2 minutes. But anyway, if you want to send in a question, be sure to tweet me on Twitter at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook at Facebook.com. Leave a comment on the post I usually put up on Sunday nights at Facebook.com/Graham.GSM.Matthews, or leave a comment, leave a post on the wall itself with your question. Or leave a comment on this very video. I'll be sure to include your question in next week's edition. So that's it, guys. Be sure to check out all the links in the description box below. I'm Graham GSM Matthews. Enjoy the rest of your week. Have a fantastic February, and I'll catch you folks down the road.